It is Spec Sheet. I'm Michael. He's Curtis. Hey, babe.
Hey, I said we'll do it live.
This is a show primarily about tech, where we talk about tech, the news that's tech, the things that are tech, the aspects of our lives that are tech, all for the entertainment value that our listening audience is able to extract from it. And I'm not coming to you tonight from my usual elegant audio setup. Everything is in boxes. I'm in the process of a move. And the way I'm going about this move is rather complex and convoluted. So it's probably going to be the end of this summer before everything is actually out of the boxes and set up and ready to go. So in the interim period, this is what you get. Me sitting in a park on a headset, connected to my phone, talking to Curtis with no video. And I can't believe, actually, that I'm able to... There's so much that doesn't work when you plug into an iPhone. There's so many peripherals that just do not do what you expect them to do when plugging into an Apple device. So I'm actually shocked that I'm able to take this headset and plug it in and speak to you over a wire, because I know Apple is so anti-wire. I can't believe this actually works. Granted, I have to use the Apple 3.5 millimeter headset jack dongle in order to be able to connect this headset. But it seems to be, yeah, yeah. So it's like it's doubly surprising that it actually works, but apparently it does. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, be sure to go to our website. I'll go back to the view that actually has our website on it, because you don't want to be looking at just me full screen, but go to specsheet.tech to find all the links to everything we do. It's got all of our streaming channels, our Twitter account, or X, I guess. Go there. Also, be sure to hit up the link towards the bottom for a Patreon, and we thank you, everyone who is a supporter for us there. If you would like to help support us to do more shows like this, with Michael being able someday to be in a van down at the park, then be sure to go there and become a member.
There is a river nearby. The only missing component is the van.
Yeah, yeah. You need a panel van with no windows in the back, and it needs to have a big dish on the top of it.
It also needs to have those circular convex windows in the back, like the A-Team van.
Yes.
If it doesn't have that, you're not
to A-Team, and because I was thinking that too.
If it doesn't have the convex circular windows, you're really not at risk of being abducted. That's right. How I've always viewed life. So
Wait, doesn't it also have a spoiler? Don't you need a spoiler?
You know what? The A-Team van did have some kind of a spoiler, didn't it?
Yeah, because when you're thinking aerodynamics, an Astro van with a spoiler is what I think of.
I recently started watching the old A-Team shows. I started with episode 1 of season 1 and just slowly started making my way through it. I don't get to watch them as frequently as I'd like to, but that's actually a surprisingly good show. You would think that that show would not have aged very well, but
That was my question. Yeah.
it actually has aged very well, and you kind of find yourself getting into the history of it all and watching interviews people who were on the show are doing about the show. The guy who played who's the wacko guy, the like crazy
Faith.
guy.
Is it Face?
Yeah, Face. No, that's the good looking like
No, is it?
handsome.
Wait, hold on, man.
He played
Not
he
Murdoch.
played Barkley also in Star Trek: The Next
Yeah.
Generation. I think his
Right.
name's like Wayne something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Hold
But
on.
anyway,
I'm going to go IMDb because
I was watching a really interesting interview with him where he was talking about George Papard, who plays Hannibal, and he was talking about what a prick George Papard was to work with, and everybody hated George Papard because George Papard coming into that show was actually a movie star. He was a legit movie star, and in those days, going from movies to TV was looked at as essentially a step down on the ladder, and
it's amazing
so
how that's changed.
yeah, it sure has. And he walked in with a swagger and a shovel that he knew who he was, and he was going to make sure you did too. And then what started happening was Mr. T started becoming the star of the show. George Papard thought that he was going to be the star of the show, but in retrospect, isn't it silly to think that you've got Mr. T, and then standing next to him is George Papard? Is there any universe in which anyone thought anyone other than Mr. T was going to be the star of that damn show?
Right.
It's insane to imagine that. Yeah, it's insane to imagine he thought he was going to be the star of the show, but that is what he thought, and he started to build a really huge resentment toward Mr. T as a result of this, and so the two hated each other. And if you ever watch the A-Team again, you can watch it in that context of knowing that Mr. T and George Papard had nothing but contempt for one another. Although I think George Papard's hatred toward Mr. T was probably far greater than Mr. T's hatred, if any, toward him.
I pity the fool who has hatred.
So I'm glad you
towards
tuned
Mr. T.
in for this bit of A-Team lore tonight, and I thank you. And ta.
Yeah, till next time. Yeah, now I can want to look into George Papard's history. I've got IMDb up. I don't know if you can see that down there by the park that you're sitting at, but let's look at his acting credits. We've got.
Let me go into landscape so I can actually
Yes, please.
see what's happening on your screen. That didn't help much, actually.
I would also ask all of the viewers to make sure you're doing this in landscape as well, because vertical just does not make sense for this. Oh, that was wild. Like I disappeared from the screen. Okay. So anyway, let's look at,
What are you looking
Man.
for?
I'm looking at George Papard's
Oh, he was in a ton of
IMDb.
crap. I mean, I had no idea what a big star he was, actually.
Silence
I
like
I
glass.
I only knew of him as having been in the A-Team.
Right.
And
Yeah, there we
then I started looking into it. It's actually quite surprising.
Rough Night in Jericho. I'm trying to see something that like stands out as one I know. Starting.
I do
He was
that a
on-
lot.
Yeah.
There'll be
You-
some celebrity that has died or everybody's talking about, and I'm like, okay, what's the big deal? So I'll go look at their IMDb, and I start going down the list, and it's just haven't seen it, haven't seen it, haven't seen it, haven't seen it. And I can't tell you how many times this happens. I'll make it through their entire IMDb catalog, not having seen one single thing this person's been in. And I'm doubly perplexed by the fact that everybody's talking about them at that point.
Yeah, House of Cards. That sounds familiar. 1968. In the
It probably
1960s
only
Paris.
sounds familiar to you because of the Netflix show, I would imagine.
No, and that too. But like even the poster looked like maybe, but no, I don't know. Oh wait, what's interesting is an American boxer stumbles upon an international fascist conspiracy that aims to create a new world order.
Get on
And he's not
YouTube.
even- It stars him, Inger Stevens, and Orson Welles. So he was.
Well, if
And
you're
who knew it was
listening
a
to
prequel?
this, if you're listening to this and you have free use of a computer at the moment, when you have some time, get on YouTube and search for George Papard Game Show. There was some game show that George Papard was on in like 1978, and I don't remember the name of it. It might have been one of those game shows where I think it was the one where they have the clue words and you have to guess what the actual word is, but I don't know what the name of the show is. But anyway, George Papard is one of the guest celebrities on this show, and he spends the entire show complaining about the contract that they made him sign before appearing on the show.
Seriously?
the the entire 30-minute episode of this game show is just George Papard awkwardly at the most inopportune moments complaining that they made him sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Isn't that part of the key of it? Is you don't talk about it? It's
I
like Fight
guess, but
Club.
he didn't seem to quite get that. I guess he had never. That's actually surprising. He could have had such a storied career in entertainment and whatnot, and could have made it that far without having encountered that, having to sign things of that nature. But yeah, he spends this entire episode of this game show complaining about the contract that made him sign. And if you like things that are cringe, if you like things that make you feel uncomfortable, this will certainly fit that criteria. George Papard Game Show. Search it up.
Yeah, I'll have to go look that up. I would do it right now, but I'm just going to assume that would get us a copyright hit. I don't
Well,
know.
what we could do is we could start hosting a live stream about awkward celebrity game show appearances
So
tonight.
that would be, I would sign on for that. Like, how about we just host game shows for our audience to let them see how awkward they could be on our game show, online game show.
Curtis, I'm open to ideas. I mean, if there's
Okay,
something
good.
you can do to get us into the next stratosphere, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have better ideas.
Yeah, well, it takes something that's just off the wall like that. But so I don't know. I want to go back to the comedy style there of awkwardness, because there's different categories of it. There's like there's a Tim and Eric awesome show, Eric Andre. Like, what's your go-to comedy style in awkwardness?
Well, I am a big Tim and Eric fan. Although, who's the guy? Sam Hyde. Sam Hyde is a comedian who did a show that was similar to Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. But his approach to things had sort of a right-wing, alt-right tinge to it. And in some ways, it was mocking the right wing and mocking the alt-right, but people who were of the wrong persuasion couldn't see that was in many cases what he was doing. And so Eric Wareheim and Tim Heidecker went behind the scenes to Adult Swim to get his show removed from Adult Swim. And it saddens me that they did that, because it really affected my perception of them. It feels like
That surprises me to hear. Yeah.
it feels like a lot of the things he was doing on his show were no different than what they had done and gotten famous for doing. It's just that they now were in the circle, and they now had the success, and they now were protected, and they now had the inertia, and they saw this up-and-comer who was as talented as them, if not in some ways arguably more so. And they just kind of did what they had to do to keep him from getting anywhere. It was like $1 Million Extreme, I think was the name of his show.
What was his name again?
Sam Hyde. And he's still all over social media, but he gets described by a lot of people as a racist and an alt-right extreme. Yeah, and an alt-right extremist and stuff like that. But I think really in this era, you can be labeled as that so easily if you just simply are outside the mainstream, is all it takes to be labeled that, if you have an alternative point of view.
He was on Fish Tank All-Stars. Oh, he's a producer of it. Never mind. Whatever that is.
But I will say I'm a big fan of Tim and Eric, and I do have every episode that they ever produced in my library, and I do fall back to it quite a bit because even now I still rather enjoy it, and
So
I'm always amazed by how many people I've run into who've never heard of them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I thought they were ubiquitous at this point, but like, what did you think of like their later year stuff where they were doing the oh gosh, what's it called? What's their religion? The Baja pre demi. Do you know what I'm
is
talking
that
about?
is that the one where they were both wearing white and Tim had his hair dyed blonde and it was like in a pompadour
Yeah, here. Let me look this up really quick because I'm trying to remember what
and
that
he
was
had the
called.
capped teeth? I don't know really what specifically it is that you're referring to. Like I don't know what it's
Zone
called,
theory.
but
Zone
yeah,
theory.
I saw those videos. But I mean, when I think Tim and Eric, I think the TV show. I don't
Right.
really.
Well, that's why I asked because like everything, I thought that was really funny, and I still reference that a lot. Zone theory, because my favorite part of it's the interviews they did, because they went and did live interviews in character and just totally confused the people who were doing the interviews. But that was like the best part that came out of it. But that definitely indicated a point where they had reached. That's why I thought everyone probably knew about them at that point because they wrote a book, they did a special. It seemed really popular in terms of like
They
getting
wrote a
lots of
book.
press. Oh yeah, yeah. Zone Theory is a book. In the book is all in character, so it's teaching you how to do this. Let's see, do they still have the website? They had a website teaching how to do it too. It's a take on like Scientology too. Here,
Well,
hold
see
on.
what they did to Sam Hyde. This is how much it damaged my impression of them, I guess, because while I still have from them what I appreciated in the old Adult Swim days, that's still bouncing around in my head. There's not really much after that I've kept up with, just simply because it's so tainted my impression of them, and I felt like they kind of became everything they had been mocking all of these years. They became the network executive. They became the inside player.
Well,
Um,
that also annoys me because they must subscribe to the idea that anything new just has to take down something old, like it's game theory fully. And I think in entertainment now, especially what we started off talking about, you're rewatching A Team. That's exactly the reason that they created streaming internet, is so you'll go back and rewatch these old things for views for them rather than just having it play on Saturday afternoon filler TV. But that doesn't take away from the new stuff if the new stuff is good. And it sounds like Tim and Eric must have subscribed to the idea there could only be one quirky comedy show that's pushing boundaries, because if there were two, that would take away from them, when it isn't the truth. If your stuff's good, people will find it.
I recommend looking up Million Dollar Extreme. And in some ways, it's funnier than Tim and Eric. It's the same genre of comedy, but it's got more of an edge to it, and it's less concerned with actually offending anybody. Like Tim and Eric, on the one hand, they're operating outside the mainstream, but on the other hand, you can still sense that concern with offending anybody, that concern of, well, let's not get called this and let's not get called that. You can still sense that that's there.
Yeah.
Um, but with Million Dollar Extreme, there was none of that. They really just did what they thought would make people laugh.
Do you watch, or have you watched any Eric Andre and like his Eric Andre
No,
show?
I have no idea who he is.
Okay, so he came out of that whole idea too, like the Adult Swim comedy pushing boundaries kind of deal, and he has like a no boundaries deal too. And I was watching a TikTok of one of his live shows, and one of the comments of it was great because it's like he's the modern day Gallagher, they said. But in each of his TV show episodes, like there's this moment that's where he just freaks out, or somebody freaks out, like a person will run out on set and destroy a chair or destroy his desk, or he regularly destroys his desk. And then the gag is that it's always like a fake desk and someone behind him is setting the desk back up. It's always weird. And you wonder, depending on who the guest is, whether they actually understand what they're watching or what they joined on for. Sometimes clearly they know, and other times the person seems so genuinely surprised by the chaos happening around them on this talk show that it's fun to watch that. But anyway, his live show, he comes on stage and immediately tears his desk up, starts throwing food into the crowd, and is just like throwing bottles of water on them, throwing like a pie on them, like it was like an apple pie, and he ends up hitting with some cake the person who's filming it on their camera. And I'm just like, I mean, everyone there knew what they're getting into. You don't go to one of his shows without a good understanding of what's going to happen. But that would suck. You go go to watch this comedy show and you're getting covered in drinks and then food. It was just gross.
Okay, I have seen this guy before, but and the name seemed familiar to me, but I wasn't sure why it did. But where I saw this guy, and the only place I've ever seen this guy was when, oh God, what is what's the show with the four dudes that are friends and they go around pranking each other and
Jackass.
no,
But
they
you're
have
talking
to
about pranksters.
like
Or
they'll be
when-
hiding and there'll be one guy out in public and they're like, pull your pants down, and he has to do
Yeah.
whatever they say.
Practical
Or,
jokers.
yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so the guy Joe on that show left the show, and then
And
the following season they brought in these celebrity like replacements who were just temporary replacements, and Eric Andre was in the first group of celebrity replacements they brought in, and I watched one episode of that and I was so done. And that's the only thing I've ever seen him in. The only time I've ever seen him. I had never seen him prior to that, and I remember my impression being, so this is the celebrity replacement, huh? I've never heard of this
Well-
guy or seen this guy. I have no idea who he is, but he seems to be trying so hard to fit in and get into the rhythm of things, and it's just not working.
yeah, the thing is that he definitely feeds off the energy of the people around him. That's part of the shtick. When it's just him, then he just becomes chaos folding in on itself. The dude's like most people who do this kind of comedy, extremely smart. Like he moves faster than the people around him do. But if the people around him don't give him the energy he needs, then you're not going to get his best. He can't elevate like I don't know, not stagnant, but just like uninspired. Like if they didn't write for him, which I'm guessing of those kind of shows, they have writers doing all kinds of stuff. If he was just trying to riff off of them and they didn't bring the same energy, then I could see him falling flat. Like it was interesting in the same idea of like seeing behind the scenes for him. Like he was doing a podcast with, I forget who, but basically that same show, he became friends with those practical joker guys. And then they did a prank show where the main guy from Jackass was the main guy. And the whole idea is people would come in and pitch their practical jokes to them. And then they would pick the winner, the best practical joke and execution. But the hosts kept, and there was a 3-panel judge thing where Eric Andre, and I can't think of the dude, what's his name? Is it Johnny Knoxville? That's his name. He's the main judge, like the anchor to it. And Eric Andre said that it was the most painful experience of his life because Johnny Knoxville every day came in and would up the ante on the pranks he would do to the fellow judges to the point where they were actually hurting each other. And so like he had to up the ante on his joke or his pranks. And one day he brought a cattle prodder with him on set and he was going to fake like he was going to shock him. And this is Eric Andre brought it. Then Johnny Knoxville took the prodder, prodded himself, and then started prodding Eric Andre with it to the point where Eric Andre is like, I'm going to have a heart attack from this. You got to stop. And then that just made Knoxville go harder on it. And so he quit. And then the producers were like, no, come back. And he's like, no, I can't do this, man. This guy, someone's going to get hurt in one of his pranks. So they made an agreement that they would do no more pranks on each other. And the next day they come in and Knoxville does a prank on him again. He's like, okay, I'm done. I'll finish out my contract for this season, but I'm done after that. And it's like, it's interesting to hear that these guys actually do have limits because like he does a good job of acting like he doesn't have a limit.
Well, I hope Eric Andre does well. He seems like a nice enough fella. But my only impression of him is what I saw in Impractical Jokers, and it was like they just got some random dude who was the sort of talk of the town at the moment, like almost
Hmm.
like a current pop culture sensation of some form or another, and sort of shoehorned him into the show because that was the most profitable thing to do, as opposed to getting somebody who was actually going to make the show watchable.
Like a fit,
And,
yeah. Well,
and
yeah.
maybe he is funny and hilarious and everything. I just have no point of reference
Yeah,
to
I
glean anything
totally put him in
from.
the category of Tom Green. So Tom Green could be funny when the people around him know how to feed off of him, and he could fall completely flat too the next day with a different group of people. Like you put him with David Letterman, and Letterman knows how to riff on him and make fun of him and not intimidated at all by him. But then you put him with Jay Leno, and it's gonna suck. That's gonna be the worst interview ever.
Weren't those
It's
old Tom Green shows from the 90s where he was just walking around randomly on the street
mhm.
talking to weird people and doing weird stuff? Wasn't that some of the best TV
Yeah.
ever?
Well,
Like
that's
the
the
one where he is pretending that he's crippled, like he's wearing a body cast and he's falling down and people are helping him up and helping him get his crutches back under his arms, and then as soon as they step 1 inch away from him, like, okay, we think he's good
mm,
now, he falls down
false.
again and
Yeah.
just screams in horror. And I mean,
See, that's Eric Andre right there. That's the magic when he does his stuff well. Uh, so yeah, you should go find some clips of his show and like the skits he does, because that's exactly the kind of skit he would do. Except he's pushing boundaries that Tom Green couldn't push. But um, but yeah, like Tom Green. But again, like I'm guessing you've probably seen Tom Green in a conversation or as a guest on something, and it just doesn't work. His energy doesn't meet the moment. That I would say the same thing happens with Eric Andre. I've seen interviews and him as a guest on things that just were not interesting at all. It wasn't until I watched his show and started to understand it better. It's like, okay, like this guy does have comedy, and I can't think of the dude's name, but his co-host on the show, watching him be more and more uncomfortable in each episode is great. Wish I could think of that
well,
guy's name. But
I haven't kept up with any technology news in quite a while, but my impression is that you are, because you frequently say the following words to me: Michael, we really ought to be talking about insert thing.
right.
So, what would you say is the big thing going on right now that inspires you to do a live stream?
Well, I'd say one of the big things is cybersecurity, because as things are accelerating in the technology world, and the funny thing is that it's always accelerating, so it's not like this is anything new. I want to be careful that, like, I think both of us have as healthy as we can view on AI and all these things. You're going to hear people talk about generative AI, whether or not it's reached general intelligence or AIG. I can't think what that acronym's for now. Or AGI, Advanced General Intelligence. Those are all like we're constantly moving towards advancement. But the other flip the coin on it. The other side of that is the bad actors are also moving at a fast pace, and like just in the last 2 days, I think, what is today, the 5th or 6th? So yeah, yesterday. Let me share this if my mouse would work for me. So this is coming from Mashable. There was a new leak, and this is what's the reason I want to bring this up, is that these leaks of data, with all of the advancements in technology, the people who are also trying to hack and steal our data, impersonate us, do all these things, they're also growing exponentially. And this is considered potentially the largest password leak ever. 10 billion credentials were exposed in the RockU 2024 leak. And with it, the hackers on a forum, that doesn't say what the forum is, a user named Obamacare, which is funny, shared a password list with over 9.9 billion passwords. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and this hits multiple slices, just the general cybersecurity, is you need to be monitoring your password leaks. There's so many tools out there now that can do this for you, that let you know whether your email, usernames, all of that have been exposed in a leak. Because if you think about 9.9 billion usernames and passwords, we're all in it. I mean, that's over one per person in the world, and obviously not every person in the world is using a computer on any kind of regular basis or even has an account. But that's one thing I want to make sure we're talking about regularly is make sure you're using unique passwords. Make sure if you are using a password management tool, just understand that tool, whether it's LastPass or any of the others that are out there, those are also a target for these people. And if you have all your stuff stored there, or your browser, all these browsers and operating systems now are trying to store credentials for you too, those are a single point of reference to get multiple accounts. So just be very careful. Have you heard anything about this? What I just mentioned, the
Well,
RockU 2024?
I haven't heard of that specifically, but pretty much, I don't know where you turn. I mean, it was about a year ago, LastPass, all of their password databases were leaked, but they said that nothing to fear because everything is salted and hashed and properly peppered and sprinkled with olive oil. And so there's no fear, nothing to worry about. But who really trusts that? I know I don't. And what you're saying is correct. There are plenty of ways to find out. All you've got to do is you go to any number of these services, type in whatever email address you have associated with various accounts out there. And these services will scour all of the known password leaks that have occurred to determine if any leaks containing your email address and password combo have been leaked anywhere. And it's pretty much available in almost every password safe that I've seen. Apple Passwords has this functionality built into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Google
Chrome does.
Passwords does. Yeah, Chrome does. Um, it's really easy to know that. I mean, obviously, the solution is to change passwords frequently. But the problem is, we all have so many different accounts. It's so many different passwords to keep up with. It's an impossible rat race to keep pace with. And I think the bottom line is we need to move into some sort of a new paradigm, security paradigm, where we get past this thinking, this old fashioned thinking, that the way to uh, impede bad actors is to do it through secrecy, to do it through obscurity, to do it through a series of characters typed into a box that no one is aware of the sequence of. That's old thinking.
That's
That's
true.
got to go away. I mean, it's it's like we're still operating on 1982 War Games movie technology when
Right.
it comes to password security and the whole password paradigm, and the notion that this is how you keep bad actors out is with a secret series of keystrokes. It's just stupid, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
necessarily what the new paradigm is, but it seems to me that we now live in a time where pretty much any device any human being is using has biometric features. So, are we going to get to the point where passwords are just gone entirely and everything is just done with your fingerprint, or everything is done with an iris scan, or any
Oh,
facial
but that's not
recognition?
even
I
true
wouldn't
though.
trust.
Iris scan isn't even what it's using. It's like a pattern of your face overall.
Well, I'm no that
But
I'm talking like specific
yeah.
iris of your eyes, or an eye. Pick your favorite eyeball, I guess. But I mean,
Yeah.
like face scan technology, I wouldn't trust, because how hard is it to build a physical model of someone's face? I think that could fool pretty much anything. I refuse to believe you cannot fool Apple's Face ID with a realistic model built with silicone of the target human being's head. I refuse
Now
to believe you
see,
couldn't fool it.
if only we had, I don't know, let's say 10,000 Patreon subscribers at our $5 level, then we could actually do that. Like we would do that for you. Michael and I would 3D scan his face. We would do a high resolution resin print of it, and then we would test it on every device and see if we could actually hack it. I don't care if anyone else has done anything else similar.
What is there to stop that from defeating Face ID? Yeah, I don't see what there is that would. Why would Face ID detect that? Why would it not?
So the interesting thing there is that it's using LiDAR, so it's because it's not actually like a photo; it's a infrared and LiDAR scan of you. So yeah, I mean, color variation. I don't know enough to say for sure, so I'm probably wrong on some details here, but I'm guessing color variation isn't what's important at that point. It's the depth of the items from each other. So if it's a physical space, that should match. So
I don't see why it wouldn't, and that's the reason that I don't generally use Face ID, because I just feel like if someone wants into your phone badly enough, let's say a government actor of some sort, well, they're going to have the resources to make a construction. Now, granted, I mean, believe me, my phone is probably, if you were to see what's in my phone, it's not entertaining, I promise you. So there's no reason you're going to go to this expense to get into my phone. But still, it's the principle of it. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have security, then have security. And I don't feel like a security system where somebody can make a physical reconstruction of your head, and as long as the eyes are looking forward to fool the Face ID into believing it has your attention, as long as the eyes are looking at the camera or the scanner, the face scanner, I don't see anything stopping that from working whatsoever.
Well, let's be honest too, though. Like all of those devices that manage that authentication point, they have bypasses. So I guarantee you there's a way to mimic on-device. Like, so let's just use Apple as our example. Supposedly Face ID is all happening on-device, nothing going to the cloud. I'm sure there's a way that they can impersonate on-device authenticated connection and not even have to look at the data that's stored about you, like that unique fingerprint that your Face ID has created for you. They have a way to bypass it. You know they do. And I'm sure the same goes for all of the other device manufacturers, software manufacturers. They're never going to admit that and make it available to us to know. So I brought up the website, haveibeenpwned.com.
Right. That's probably the most popular of these.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to use this one, but I mean, I have used it. You have to be going back to your idea about if you're going to be secure. And my acknowledging the fact that there's a technical loophole, I think goes into this conversation as well. But like always assume that everyone is out to get your data. So this website, I think, is a service that's helpful. They'll alert you if your data gets leaked in any way, which means they are scanning all this stuff and they're collecting everybody's data too. But it's at your own risk if you're going to put your email address in here or anything in it. Because again, assume everyone is out to get you. Don't assume that anybody is actually here to help you. If you're going to share your data, make sure you're getting, at the very least, that the transaction benefits you and that you may not understand all the data that's happening after they pass it off from hitting that submit button. But this website, I've used it in the past. So again, it's not a specific endorsement, but if you're looking for something to help keep track of where you've been exposed, this service and others like it are good.
You know, I used to hear Steve Gibson, the grc.org, I guess, is his website, the famous security researcher, and he does a security show called Security Now. I used to listen to that pretty regularly, and I used to hear him say that when you're creating a password on a new service, if that service is able to tell you that you don't have enough characters or you don't have a proper combination of characters, that means their system is already compromised. And that's like your first major clue that there's a problem and that you should be very careful, is if they themselves are able to tell you that your password doesn't meet the criteria. Particularly if you're in an organization and that organization forces a password change on you. And when the password change comes, if they're able to tell you that you're using the same password as you previously used and you can't do that, that again is another huge red flag.
That means they're storing and they know it. They can access the salt and
And if they can access it, others can too.
potentially. Yeah, well, that's the funny thing about like LastPass. Like, yeah, that's great that you say that. Like, potentially you have an air-gapped system to where they collect all of the data stored in your database, but they can't get the keys to decrypt it. But that doesn't mean they're not going to do a social engineering hack the other direction and get from the other side of it access to that, and then now they can see it all. But you also have to remember that these services they have to be touching, because when you put in that password or you save it to their system, you got to be able to retrieve it. It's not like they're storing that locally for you. Like, that's the thing is I think that we could have an entire conversation of our predictions of what the future of passwords are, but blockchain is probably some version of that. Like, you're going to get some kind of PGP key that you use, and then you store it and you use it, and all you do is give the access location to retrieve it from your system. But like, these services don't store their own universal key to everything, and then you own your own password and you digitally sign everything logging in. Or can you imagine a future where there's just not passwords anymore? Like, all of your data stays with you.
Well, I mean, I mean, the only way I could see that working is if the various services we use, when we decide to become users of those services, the entire infrastructure of that service gets transferred to our local device. It operates there, as opposed to there
Yeah.
being any sort of like transmissive interaction between yourself locally and whatever it is out there on the internet. But that I don't see that ever happening. I mean, the
Yeah.
amount of control that gets relinquished by these services in doing so would be
That only
pretty
happens if
monumental.
we actually had the real that's the word I'm looking for, realization of the value of our data, and we pushed it hard, like as a society and consumers, we did that, and it's probably not going to happen. The more likely future is either one large corporation becomes the main data store for everything, like a Facebook, a Microsoft, something like that, but probably some conglomeration that doesn't exist today, or it becomes a government function, and then it becomes a question of government at what level. But it's so highly unlikely that we would get to store that data ourselves. But I would love the idea of a service that you self-host. It can even be cloud hosted, but you are the only one who has credentials for it, and it stores your entire profile. And all you do is touch a service to say, I want to use it, and they can get the specific parts that you make available to them. Instead of having an end user license agreement, you check the everything is denied until you check the box to say, or the toggle to say, yes, give this site access to this because the value I'm getting out of it is worth sharing it. And then, I mean, that's the future I'd like to have, but it's probably going to be more likely that monolithic company and or a government agency that builds your online profile. And then you have the version of like Real ID online.
And you know what you mentioned a little while ago about everybody having their own encrypted key that they just use for all services. I mean, isn't that ultimately still the same thing? It's still ultimately a series of characters being plugged into
Mm-hmm.
a, it's being plugged into a system, supplied to a system for the purposes of it decrypting what needs to be decrypted. I mean, it's just a longer series of characters and it's more randomized, but it's still the same paradigm, is it not?
It is. Oh yeah, no, it's just shifting who controls it, but it's the same problem. Like, again, like my idealistic future would be one where all you need is a username and say that you've authenticated, and or like an email address, your unique identifier that says I'm allowing the system to access, and then they touch your service to say, okay, did you give me access to this data for my service to do XYZ? And then if you didn't give it to them, they just don't have it. They don't store anything about you other than that user ID has logged in. And then passwords don't matter. data transfer doesn't matter. Everything is stored on your side with your system. To me, that's, if we really care about security, some version of that is the future that we really should move towards, where you really keep your data. It's like your wallet. Like going to a place that's a tourist trap. It's your responsibility to keep control of your wallet because there's pickpockets everywhere. And now with credit cards with chip readers and all of that, and skimmers on credit card devices, it's your responsibility to keep your wallet safe. The same thing would happen with your digital profile at that point. Is it's your responsibility to keep it safe. And like my hope is that we would be allowed to create honeypot profiles that are not your real profile, that were like you could go and sign up for a service with that fake account and not actually share anything identifiable about yourself. But they wouldn't let that. They would want it. You'd have to have some verified service that says, yes, you are who you say you are, if you're getting to keep the data.
I think clearly the solution going forward here is we eliminate usernames, we eliminate passwords, and we all just use our social security number.
There you
And
go.
I think we're golden at that point. I
Well,
really don't.
But before the digital age really kicked in at high speed for like e-commerce, isn't it weird how much we use our social for everything? And like
Oh,
you're
I know.
constantly giving it out for as your identifier.
Yeah, it was on in Missouri. It was on driver's licenses. I don't know
Yeah,
about
I
other
think it was
states,
here
but
too in
yeah,
Indiana.
yeah, it sure was. And then they did away with that. But I just did some thinking though as I was going to make my little goofy social security number comment there. It occurred to me that social security numbers are comprised of 9 characters. So when we hit 1 billion people in the United States using a social security number, we'll either have to do away with the system or they'll just have to add a character, I guess, to
Yeah.
the
Well,
to the socials.
they recycle anyway. So,
Do they really?
oh yeah, yeah.
I
And
didn't know
there's
that.
different ones. Yeah, they recycle, and if I remember right, they recycle and like their number systems that what they're based off of already make it a problem. I'll have to Google this really quick.
So I
Because
thought you were once you were dead, your number died with you, like a legendary baseball player passing into the ether. No.
yeah, I don't think that's correct. I mean, hold on. Let me see if I'm wrong here. Like I like being able to go on the fly. Hold on. To security.
Love your nice mechanical keyboard sound there. That's great.
Yeah. Okay, they say they don't recycle them. Hold on, let me share this.
Curtis, if you could stop giving our listening audience incorrect information, honestly.
Well, that's what I'm here for, is for mis and malinformation. To date, 453.7 million different numbers have been issued. Our social security numbers were used after a person dies. No, we do not reassign the social security number after the number holder's death.
Okay,
All
so
right.
then that's actually going to be quite a bit sooner than when we have 1 billion people using one, because the people who have used one and died, their number doesn't get reused. So the math of that is actually much further accelerated than I had thought.
Yeah, so it looks like, so an elaborate mathematical guesstimate here quotes that the precise number is 988,991 or 911,099 possible accounts exist, and they've passed out roughly 400 million. And researchers calculate that roughly 300 million people will require new social security numbers by the year 2050. That's interesting.
So even then, we won't have expired. We won't have consumed all of them even by then.
But we're getting up there though. Let's see.
Curtis, I'm scared of what's going to happen when that system breaks down. Hold me.
I know. I hear you. Let's cuddle in the corner, everybody. So I must fall
Oh,
into
dear
the
Lord, they've added a new number to the Social Security system. I'm scared.
Yeah, can we have that right beside the debt calculation? Conspiracy theories abound as to the significance of the numbers, but the true explanation is mundane. The first three digits are assigned by geographical region. Originally, this was done by state, with the lowest numbers on the eastern seaboard with the highest along the Pacific. They are now assigned according to zip code. The middle two digits are referred to as the group number, which simply breaks down to each geographic unit into smaller random subsets. That is, your neighbor's baby may share the same first three digits with your toddler, but the kid's group number will likely be different. The last four digits are the serial number, is assigned in chronological order within each area and group number as the applications are processed. Serial number 0000 is never used.
It'd be hilarious if you got somebody that works in the Social Security Administration. You're like, look, I want 0000. What can
Yeah.
you do for me?
Can you make this happen?
Look, I own a lawn maintenance company. You're going to get free lawn care. Just get me quad zero.
Nice.
That's all I want. If I
I
can,
want a used fax machine.
it's amazing the number of people driving past me here, staring at me because I'm wearing this ginormous, homunculus Howard Cosell style headset with a boom mic coming down in front of my face, and I'm sitting here talking into it, and they're just looking at me like they can't understand why somebody would want good audio quality with a headset microphone.
Right. So I guess two random thoughts. First, is Howard Cosell, is he the one who did he might go all the way? Was that his call? Because I want you to
it might be, but I'm probably going to yell out, John Lennon has been shot to death.
Nice, yeah. That was during Monday Night
that's
Football, wasn't it?
That's what I'll always think of when I think of Howard Cosell, is the John Lennon announcement.
Yeah.
Isn't that something totally unrelated to what he did for a living, something totally disconnected from sports? Well, some people consider shooting as sports, so maybe I'm actually not too far.
Oh, man.
But,
no,
nevertheless,
he was involved in all kinds of pop culture stuff.
Yeah, I guess he was, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a journalist, which that's a whole other topic. But the other thing I was going to say is, like, your headset actually harkens back to a day that I prefer with mobile devices and just mobile audio players. Because, like, I just realized not too long ago, as I'm driving through the college campus I live beside, and person after person, like, well spread out from each other because the campus is closed, or it's summer school, so it's like 1/20th of the normal amount of activity. But every person that I drove past had a headset, like a wireless headset in that you can't really see the earbuds necessarily, and they're all talking, and their hands are animated as they're talking, but they're walking by themselves. So everyone looks crazy. And just realizing,
I am so sick and tired of people speaking to me, and then I respond, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm on a call."
Right.
I'm so tired of that, dude, and it's been going on for 20 years now.
It's been escalating. Yeah, that, and also the speakerphone thing, where somebody grabs their phone and you probably can't see me, but they're holding it up by their face talking, like, or they have it upside down talking like this. Like, I was in the grocery store, and I try to avoid being in a grocery store as much as I can, but everybody is like talking loudly in their phone, and I have my 2-year-old with me, and typically I'm trying to get my 2-year-old to not be loud. And actually, I have my 2-year-old and my 7-year-old both with me, and they combine with each other to build the superpowers like Captain Planet of the most loud things that can be said in random patterns ever for the frustration of everyone around us. Normally, I would try to quell that, but all these people having these loud conversations, I'm just like, how can I poke you guys to be louder? Because I want every call around me to hear you.
I kind of feel like you and I are living the same lives with our children at the store, because my daughters will say, "Daddy, can we do Hoya?" Or my youngest daughter will ask me, "Can I do Hoya?" I'm like, "That's fine. You go right ahead." And so they'll both run maybe 2 aisles over. They'll find an aisle where there is nobody. And my youngest daughter will yell out as loudly as she possibly can, "Attention shoppers, can I get a Hoya?" and I can't tell you how hilarious it is, the percentage of times that people actually respond, and you'll hear just faint echoes throughout the store. Let's say it's a Walmart. You'll just hear faint echoes of people off in the distance going, "Hoya," in response. But
Nice.
my daughter's like asked permission to be loud and obnoxious in the store, and I'm like, you know what? Anything you can do to improve the ambiance of this place, you go right ahead, honey.
Right. Like,
You do.
yeah, you cannot make this experience worse. So do your best.
Yeah, you do whatever you need to do. My daughters are overseas right now visiting family, and they're going to be out of overseas until the end of the summer, which is partially related to the complexity of my move. I'm trying
And
to
that's when
time
we get
things.
the RV that Mike will be doing van life from. Is when I get back. I'm excited for this new van life series you're going to be starting.
I'm growing a beard. I've stopped showering. It's really, it's a new life for me.
Wait,
But
have you gone vegan too?
well, you know, as vegan as you can when eating out of dumpsters. I mean,
There you go. Well,
if it's green, I generally call it a go.
there you
And
go.
but my
Mold
kids
is
are
one of the food
overseas
groups.
visiting family right now, and it's like I'm thinking about things like this, like just being in the store and letting my kids do stuff that annoys other people. It's like
Yeah.
I don't have that right now, and it's so like empty and barren. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what to do with myself. I can't go to the store and annoy people. I can't go to the trampoline park. I guess I could go to the trampoline park, but what 44-year-old man goes to a trampoline park alone
I think we know.
and pays money to go jump on the trampolines? I mean, that would just be the creepiest thing that I think you could possibly do as a middle-aged man. So needless to say, I don't do that.
What's a trampoline park?
It's literally a building with a huge number of varied shape and intent trampolines. In other words, the floor is like flush. They're not elevated above you. Like you look across the floor and everything is ground level, but some parts of that ground are actually trampolines. And some of them are shaped in certain ways. Some of them jump higher. Some of them don't jump as high. Some of them have curvature to them and actually go slanted up into the wall. Some of them you can jump off of into a giant pit of cubes, foam cubes. I mean, it's a pretty good time. I think it's one of my kids' favorite things to do, but it's prohibitively expensive, I will say.
Yeah, I think my daughter went to a birthday party at one of those once. I've never been to one, but I hear that and I think of all the liability. Think how bad the insurance has to be on there.
You have to sign a waiver, and you pretty much have to guarantee them that if an employee of the place goes rogue and starts coming at you with a machete, you can't do anything about
It's
it.
your
You
fault.
just have to take it, and that's that. But I mean, on the other hand, they're really flippant because I mean, we went in there one day. I'm like, look, I want to jump with my kids, but my question is, am I too fat? And she was like, "Oh no, you're not too fat." And in the back of my response was, "Oh, okay, cool." But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not so sure you've tested this.
Right.
I don't know how confident you were in that response.
You
Are
did
you
sign the
trying not to
waiver.
hurt my feelings? I mean, I just described myself as fat to you. So, we've already jumped the chasm here. It's okay. If I am, you can tell me I'm too fat. But no, I'm not.
But so did you do it?
No, not yet. But
Okay.
when they, I've promised them when they come back into the country at the end of the summer, I am going to take them there, and I actually am going to jump with them. So we
Well,
will
listen,
test
girls.
this out, and we will see should I fall through one of these trampolines into the giant pit of spikes and/or alligators that obviously await you underneath each trampoline. We'll find out how strong that waiver actually is.
There you go. You need Better Call Saul there to be your lawyer.
My daughter was like trying to convince me that one of the trampolines actually does have spikes or something under it. And I'm like, honey,
That would be awesome.
I promise you there are no spikes.
Yeah. Can you check the box here that says you're okay with spikes being under the trampoline?
We're going to need you to agree. You agreed to the terms, sir.
Yeah.
You agreed to the terms. There's a homeless fentanyl addict that lives under trampoline number 4. Should he accost you using a blade through the trampoline matting,
Or a needle.
we
There
are not
needles.
liable.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine, like, oh, dude, you hire like an employee who's a psychopath who knows that everyone there has signed a waiver that it absolves him or her of any kind of wrongdoing in terms of like accidents due to negligence, and then they negligently or actively negligently like do something to like loosen springs or something or put spikes under it. Man, like there'd at least be 2 injuries before they'd get caught.
I just don't think that those types of waivers really hold up anyway.
Yeah.
There's just I don't know. Any contract is only as good as the judge that's willing to interpret it, and I think that if you're a patron of a particular business and the business is negligent in a way that is just so egregious that it's utterly unacceptable and it unambiguously breaks the social contract that businesses have with the general public. It doesn't really matter what waiver you've signed. I mean, that business is toast.
Yeah.
And just the act of having to defend the waiver is probably going to result in the business choosing to settle with you rather than go to court anyway. They'd rather just settle with you than even argue the validity of their own waiver.
Well, they
So
also have insurance to cover them too at
that
some
too.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll sign whatever you want to put in my face, and then whenever I fall through the trampoline into the meat grinder, the diesel powered meat grinder that you have,
Yes. Oh man.
the Upton Sinclair early 1900s, the jungle meat grinder that you've got under there waiting for me. We'll see how that holds up in court. I'll sign whatever. I don't care.
Speaking of signing whatever, like I have my task manager open because I've been watching to see how much CPU usage and memory Restream IO is taking up, and I keep getting popped up here the Logitech AI prompt builder, and I have no idea when I ever installed any kind of Logitech AI prompt builder.
Do you have Logitech anything plugged
I have
into
a
your
Logitech
system?
mouse. Yeah. Or
Okay, so
trackball.
clearly, if you have a mouse, clearly there needs to be some sort of AI behind that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm going to look this up online. Hold on.
you as a pathetic little water-based human,
Right.
you have no business being in sole control of that mouse. There's going to need to be some sort of AI behind it.
Listen to this. So I just did where you right click and search online for something. And of course it goes to Bing. But it says Logi AI Prompt Builder.exe is a tool that provides instant, in context access to ChatGPT while simplifying and accelerating prompt building. It allows users to create custom made prompt recipes faster and with virtually no disruption to the workflow. The feature integrates with certain Logitech keyboards, mice, enabling quick generation of prompts for OpenAI's ChatGPT. I literally never installed this thing or said I wanted to do it.
No, you agreed to the terms, though, didn't you, Curtis?
Oh yeah. That's the problem. But
the very fact, like if you want to condemn where AI is headed and how useless it actually is in so many ways, one of the best ways you could do so is to point out the fact that someone needs to be there holding your hand to construct prompts. Like just the fact that the average human isn't going to be able to construct a prompt in an adequate way to get the desired result at the end of everything. Instead, it's going to require help. It's going to require a prompt builder, which, by the way, the prompt builder itself is AI. So you need AI to use the AI. If that's not like the worst commentary on the state of things, I don't know what is.
Yeah, this is sad. Like their new mice, which I guess I don't look that often. They have a mouse here that has like a teal button, I guess the Logitech color now, and it's the AI prompt generation button. For a limited time only, exclusive to Logitech.com, get the limited edition mouse with a customizable pre-configured to trigger Logi AI prompt builder. What? Yeah, I'm gonna play
Okay,
this
so
video. From,
button? Do you have the button on your mouse?
No, I mean I have configurable buttons, but I want to play this video and see what this Darren O'Connor wait and see if he says anything about it here. Hold on.
Hi, I'm Darren O'Connor. I'm Global Product Manager for Exploratory Innovation at Logitech. And in this video, I'm delighted to announce and demo the Logi AI Prompt Builder. OpenAI's ChatGPT is transforming how we all work. We use it 1.6 billion times per month to teach, learn, create, translate, and so much more. But sometimes it breaks the flow of my work to have to go to a new browser tab and ask it a question. And I struggle to write a good prompt. The Logi AI Prompt Builder is a new tool that can be summoned with the click of a Logitech keyboard or mouse and helps me to rapidly and simply prompt ChatGPT without breaking the flow of my work. To use the Logi AI Prompt Builder, I highlight the text I wish to work with and press the shortcut button I've chosen in the Logi Options Plus app. An intuitive interface pops up on top of my work.
Is it intuitive?
Yeah. It's basically a wrapper for how you can create, like a GUI for creating a...
You need to cut the volume on that video by about half.
Automatically copy the text I had selected. I can choose from predefined recipes of commonly used queries such as rephrase or summarize, saving me time.
Okay, that just annoys me.
Yeah. Again, you need AI to be able to use AI.
Yeah.
Then we're going to need AI to use the AI that uses the AI.
Right.
It's really just so stupid, and it's the worst possible commentary on the state of things. And the fact that companies are hiring people to manipulate their AI pursuits because these people are good at writing prompts, the fact that that's even a thing, it just, to me, illustrates the uselessness of much of this technology. My grandma, God rest her soul, where she's still alive, should be able to sit down in front of an AI bot and use it with the same level of fluency as your average computer scientist. It shouldn't require that you be a prompt jockey.
Right. I do love that. That's funny. But like the whole idea that that's a category now. But the thing you have to remember, and like that's helped me figure out a lot with it, is companies went wild on the whole idea of getting cryptocurrency people. Like you need someone in doing crypto. You got to have a crypto group. Who's your crypto group? That's just been replaced with AI. AI it is a beneficial scripting system, and it is learning how to do things with human language, at least. That actually brings up a question. Like, how good is a generative AI with non-English languages? Like, I don't hear anyone ever talk about that.
Well, I will say a few weeks ago, before Nabila and the kids left the country, she and I were sitting at a table, and I was showing her ChatGPT's new spoken conversational mode that we played around with 1 or 2 shows ago.
Yep.
And I had her speak in Arabic, which is her native language. And she spoke in her natural dialect, which is Moroccan Arabic. And it had no idea what to do with what she was saying to it. But then she started speaking in the type of Arabic that they teach in school in the Arab world. So if you live in the Arab world and you go to school, when you go to their equivalent of what we have as English class here, when you go to their equivalent of that Arabic class, this is something that's so different for us. We go to English class, you're being taught the same English that you use in day-to-day life. But when they go to school and they're taught Arabic, the Arabic they're learning is nothing like the dialect of Arabic that most of them are speaking on a day-to-day basis. So, but they know that Arabic because it's what they're taught in school. So when she started speaking that Arabic, it was fluent and it was able to follow her all the way.
So it's good at the basic, general form of Arabic, but it does not get dialects.
Not at all. I mean, if you get into the weeds at all like that, I mean, it's useless.
That's the thing. So I get what you, I did not know that about you go to school to learn basically the generalized version versus your localized version, which would be this just shows you that the students going through the American system, if they're not in a dual language program, probably aren't pushing their brain all the directions that would be nice to have them pushed, because that makes you have to think through translation in a different way. That would be, once you've got your generalized version of Arabic and your localized version that you can switch between them quickly, picking up the next language is probably that much easier because you've built neural pathways to connect like that, even though they're probably similar. But that's what would, like, the localized version is what would make ChatGPT or any generative AI beneficial, like not the generalized version.
The ease of those neural pathways that you mentioned, I think you're right about that, and that's why Nabila speaks 4 languages. But it's useful. I mean, the dialects of Arabic that are out there are countless numbers of them, and they're so radically different from one another that I used to have this Saudi friend, and one time he was over, and while he was sitting there, Nabila was having a conversation on the phone with her mom, and they were speaking in their natural, localized Moroccan dialect of Arabic. And this Saudi friend of mine is sitting there. He had absolutely no clue what they were saying.
That's wild.
None whatsoever. It was literally to him as though they were speaking entirely a different language. He had no clue whatsoever. And I think it may be something analogous for us would be when we listen to a Scotsman from the countryside, that the Scottish countryside, that might be somewhat analogous to what they experience.
Yeah, I believe that because I know someone from there that, like, when I first met them, I couldn't understand anything they were saying. And then, like, over time, they get comfortable with speaking, like Americanized English and slow down some. And then now I can understand more words when they speak in their native style, but I still can't pick up everything.
Yeah. I think that's the best example. Well, long story short, AI has a long way to go. It is not the catch-all solution that we're being led to believe it is. And if you are not in the English-speaking world, or at least connected to it in some way, or you don't at least speak a highly mainstream language like German or French, probably Dutch,
Spanish.
Of course, Spanish, yes. Portuguese. If you speak anything that goes further into the weeds than Chinese, obviously, Korean, Japanese, but even I would imagine
those
Chinese
have a lot of dialect.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I would imagine particularly Chinese.
Chinese is interesting because, like, managing multilingual websites for it, just the way you have to handle font characters. Like when you're dealing with symbol-based languages, that's not the right word for it, but what is that actual word? But like just this interesting. It's same variation of what we're talking about, like in the written form of their languages by dialect. You could radically change a sentence just by using the wrong font or font weight.
That's funny. Yeah, this all has a long way to go. And,
well, so like one of the stories, because I do think we need to keep on the long form conversation of being realistic about AI rather than, like, I'm all for if they can prove an advancement, then I want to see it. I want it vetted. I'm excited for it. But part of, like, those conversations that you and I, I'm going to jump around a little bit here. AI could never do this jumping around as well as we do. But like one of the things is we talked about, like, that, like, we did our own little demo of that spoken version of ChatGPT. And since then, lots of stories have come out about how all these different AI companies are faking their demos. Like, OpenAI has had all kinds of legal issues in terms of, like, the data sets they're using. Executive at Microsoft claims now that anything on the internet is available. If it's in the open internet, it should be
Adobe,
exactly. Yeah, that's another story where they've had to backtrack massively, but notice they've changed the language supporting their contracts, but not their contract, and tried to clarify things. It's really interesting. But you have, like, companies like that, Rabbit AI, is that what it is? Or Rabbit, whatever.
Is that the one with the little cheap plasticky looking AI? Yeah.
Like, that company has had so many things come out. There's all kinds of allegations about what's happening behind the scenes with them detrimental, and how so much of it's been faked. Like there's a guy, CoffeeZilla. I don't know if you ever watch
I
any of
do.
his.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so like he had a series of videos that just their own PR person like outs their mistakes by not acknowledging things. Like the fact that they use a scripting system, like I still consider AI an advanced scripting system. It's like everything we've been building for a long time in scripting, just getting better at running itself. And that is a good thing. That's not a negative. But when you see like his expose on Rabbit, basically their system is like doing a bunch of scripting and going out to a web service to create like a fake version of what it is you think you're getting real time. Like all kinds of stories are coming out now, like the cracks in the foundation of tech AI, like as this category of systems, just like crypto was for a while, is coming out now. It's really, really interesting, and I want to keep following it.
Well, I think a lot of these companies are in panic mode. Well, like when you mentioned Rabbit AI, some of the most dominant tech reviewers on YouTube have done nothing but shit on their product.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, that is a company that is not going to be around in 2 years. And I would imagine that the people behind the scenes in that company who thought they were going to take the world by storm by producing a device that only does one thing, and it's something that your phone is capable of doing anyway, and it doesn't do as good a job of it as the utilities that you have on your phone already. But for some reason, they thought they were going to take the world by storm with this thing. The people behind that product have got to be in absolute panic. The people, I mean, like the money people behind that product, the people who thought that it was going to make them rich and who put money into it themselves, or at the very least thought that the existence of this product, the bringing to market of this product, was going to land them on a Caribbean island surrounded by beautiful women, sipping a drink with a little umbrella in the top of it between two palm trees on a beach someday. Those people are in utter free fall, emotional free fall, career free fall, professional free fall, financial free fall, and in a state of panic right now. I think the emperor's lack of clothes in many ways has been revealed.
Yeah, that's probably the key right there, is that the emperor's got no clothes. It's
I just can't understand the like the I mean I think about the millions and millions of dollars that have been put behind a product like that Rabbit AI bull crap, and I just can't wrap my brain around how any normal person could look at this and say, wait a minute, why would you put out this physical product that basically only does one thing? It does a poor job of it. The product itself is too expensive, requires an ongoing subscription, additional subscription, in order to be able to use. I mean, you got to pay for data for this thing. It's got terrible battery life. It's slow. It's clunky. It doesn't do photography. It doesn't do any of the things that your phone does. And yet at the same time, any of the good things about this product, your phone that you already have in your pocket is already capable of, as a result of the tools and utilities that are at your disposal out there right now for you to install and use at your leisure. I can't understand how someone doesn't pull the people behind this aside before they go so far with something like this and say, hey, listen, you're going to lose your ass. Don't do this. Don't put this out. You are going to destroy yourself if you put this product out. Don't do it. I don't understand how that didn't happen.
Well, I mean, it does have to make you wonder, is there more to it? You know, like those companies who invested in it, is there some kind of financial benefit? Like, I know that I'm wrong in what I'm saying here, but just maybe you can help figure out what it is I'm fishing for. Like the idea of they have so much profit, they got to offset some losses for like tax benefits. Like that would be the only reason that you would say to these people, yeah, I'll invest these, multi-million dollars into it. Because if you've made multi-million dollars and you're a venture capitalist able to do this, you've done that because you had obviously misses, but lots of successes too. And so you kind of know how to sniff out a successful way to make money. They have to know.
I just don't understand it. Did you see what's his name, Marquez Brownlee?
Hmm.
Did you see his review of Rabbit AI?
Oh yeah,
Just this
yeah,
excoriating
yeah.
15-minute long video that I thought for sure the company was done just as a result of
Hmm.
that video alone. It's kind of oddly coincidental that Fisker, the car manufacturer, they filed for bankruptcy shortly after he reviewed one of their vehicles.
Oh yeah.
And prior to, he tried to get, it was the Fisker Ocean that he reviewed, and
Hmm.
it's this new car company, and you might have heard of the Fisker Karma from a decade and a half ago, and a couple other vehicles I believe they produced. This is not the same company, apparently. It's a new company that just happens to call itself Fisker. Why the choice of confusing and a perplexing name, I don't know, but that's what they called themselves. And this vehicle that Marquez reviewed, the Fisker Ocean, he tried to get one of the vehicles from Fisker. They wouldn't give it to him. So he said, okay, well, to hell with you. I'll go get one from a dealership. I'll just pay the dealership to let me have it for a couple of days, and I'll do the review of the thing. And then when they found out he did that, they got a hold of him and tried to talk him into waiting until they put out the version 2.0 of the vehicle's software. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to review the product that you've got out there on the market right now that people are out purchasing and driving around, that you're currently encouraging people to purchase and drive
Right.
around in. Why would I not review that product? Why would I wait? If it's not ready, why are you putting it out to market?
Yeah,
In
it's
other
either ready or it's
words.
not. Yeah.
Right. Well, so he went ahead and reviewed the product as is, and boy, that vehicle really was a stinker. And just the number of things about it that were just confusing and like inexplicable, and that didn't work properly. Simple things like the key fob working correctly at the correct time and doing what it's supposed to
Hmm.
do. I mean, stupid little stuff like that. But I guess my point is that it's really interesting how some of these larger tech reviewers have so much power. I don't think it was a coincidence that just like weeks after, and I mean just a short,
Have,
small number of weeks after Marquez reviewed that vehicle, Fisker declared bankruptcy. And I expect the same from this Rabbit AI bullcrap. The only reason they're lasting a little longer is because there's not nearly the overhead in producing their product as there would be in producing a vehicle.
yeah, I've got up on the screen right now an article from June 26th of 2024 by Allison Johnson on The Verge about the API flaws, that the security keys not being secure on it and being able to access all kinds of information. And like I remember that like the company that kind of exposed them with this API problem held back some of the places. Like there was one about how they could send emails as if they were the admin of the Rabbit R1.com, whatever their main domain is. They released a bunch of these main information of the hack, or sorry, security flaw, and they didn't share that part. And then they let Rabbit go through and try to patch up all their holes. And they didn't do an exhaustive security check. All they did was the things that were publicly acknowledged. And after that, they sent like the people who found these flaws sent emails to a bunch of like tech journalists and even the company under the admin at rabbit, whatever, r1.com, just to make the point that there's a very obvious, easy to see hard coded values that you had in here for authentication to your email servers. Any basic review would have caught this. And like they held it back just to see, are they going to be, thorough in their search or not?
Hmm.
It was crazy. I do want to go to another article really quick because I know you're making the switch from Apple back to Android, and so I saw that there's the
Enthusiastically.
so the Google Pixel 9 Pro. Have you followed anything with it? And it's
Oh, I have, yeah. But
so
you know, the Achilles heel there is they just will not use Qualcomm chips in
mhm.
these phones, and I don't know why they keep sticking with this Tensor which is
Well, Tensor
a
is good for
bottom.
the AI part of it, but like that should
Well,
not be the
but it doesn't. It's not a horsepower chip. I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
I want something, and it's got a reputedly bad modem. It's not a bad modem, but I mean, it's not on the level of what you can get when you use a Qualcomm chip.
Hmm.
And I just don't understand why Google refuses to go with what works. And there's not a single aspect of Google's AI pursuits that you can find on a Pixel device that doesn't work just fine, and in some instances, even better on a Samsung device, which is not using the Tensor chipset, is using instead a Qualcomm chipset. I don't see the. That's the only thing Google can continually point to in explaining why they're going with Tensor is their AI pursuits. But I'd like them to then further elaborate and explain what it is they're doing with AI that isn't happening on other devices that are not using Tensor. I don't think there's an answer to that question.
Yeah. The thing is that the Tensor should be just like it should be the NPU, not the main CPU or GPU of the phone. Like Tensor is great for doing offloading tasks that it's optimized for. Because that's the thing is it is massively optimized for low power consumption compared to what you're getting out of it.
See, I don't
But
even think it benefits from that. The last Pixel I owned, the 7 Pro,
well, you're not
had
using those
an,
features. Almost no one is.
it had embarrassing battery life.
Yeah, well, that's my point. Is like what I'm talking about is beneficial when you're doing like augmented reality type of functions or 3D modeling. That's going to be awesome for it. Just like with an iPhone, part of what makes it seem so fast and have good battery life is it offloads to it's not MPU is what they call it. I'm just going to use that for a neural processing unit. Theirs is like the AE something chip. But they have a neural chip that basically offloads specific types of tasks that it's been optimized for, and so your main processing unit doesn't have to deal with it, and that's great. But you're not using those features most of the time. And just like almost no one is using most of the power that's in their iPhone right now, which is another gripe. But are you looking at which phone? I was going to bring up the phone
Well,
that you.
I think I'm going to go with the S24 Ultra. But the other point I want to make about the Pixel devices is here you are using a sub tier SoC, the Tensor
Mhm.
chip, while at the same time asking me to pay over $1,000 for these devices
Right.
when I can be at approximately the same price point and buy a Samsung device that's going to give me so much. It's going to give me everything that the Pixel gives me and then so much more. It's going to give me DeX and allow me to connect my phone to an external display, keyboard, and mouse and use my phone like a desktop PC. I mean, I was sold a few weeks ago when I was watching a video. Pardon me. I was watching a video of a guy, and just to be clear on this for anybody who doesn't know, I know we talked about this a few shows back, but DeX is something that's built into Samsung phones where you can connect the phone to an external monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and then what you'll have is a desktop computing experience. It's literally, it looks like you're using Linux. The big advantage being you still have access to the apps that you have installed on your device. The only downside that I have found about it that I only recently discovered is that you're not able to install Linux applications at will. I thought that was something because I thought it was like a proper Linux environment, but
Mhm.
apparently it's not. It's just a shell on top of Android that looks like the average desktop Linux operating system. But nevertheless, it's still a proper desktop experience that encourages the use of a mouse and keyboard and operates and behaves and reacts in exactly the ways you're used to when using a mouse and keyboard at a desktop PC. But I was really sold a few weeks ago when I saw a video of a guy using DeX on an S24 Ultra playing Fortnite at 1080p and getting way over 60 frames per second. And I was done. That was it. That was what made me decide that's it. I'm done. I'm getting the S24 Ultra. I'm done with all of this. I'm tired of having all this horsepower in my pocket and not being able to do anything with it. And I know we kind of talked about this as well, but I'm still just so disgusted by this new iPad Pro with this M4 chip in it, with all of this crazy horsepower, and the only thing you can do in it is use your Apple Pencil to make drawings and animations and watch YouTube, pretty
And
much.
do
I mean,
math. It'll do
yeah,
math
and
now.
then you can do maybe some light video editing on it. It's like I just don't get the point of this. Why does this device not turn into a Mac when you connect it to a set series of peripherals that tell the device, okay, it's time to go into Mac mode now. It's time to use all that horsepower that you've got. I mean, Apple at the very least should see it as a business opportunity to sell a certain type of dock that has active cooling built into it that you plug this iPad Pro with the M4 chip into. And as soon as you do, it detects it. The iPad detects the dock and says, oh, it's time to go into Mac mode. And the dock detects the iPad, and the fans kick on and keep the iPad running cool. And the next thing you know, you've got a balls out, highly powerful Mac computer right there that you're able to carry with you in your backpack if you want to, or you can use it on the desktop, and it would absolutely compete with, and in many ways blow away, the legacy Mac Pro towers that up until recent years cost as much as $20,000 plus.
Yeah, when like we talked before about like the Surface, Microsoft Surface Pro, because I have an older Surface Pro, and that thing is really, it's not like your main go-to device, but it can do a lot of things really well that I think the iPad Pro could do better. Even like the new, I'm so annoyed because like I told you, I want to switch back to one of the new Copilot, which I don't love Copilot, but the new Copilot Plus laptops that are using the Qualcomm Snapdragon chipsets in them, but their prices are ridiculous for what you get. Like I need 16 gigs of RAM is probably fine for right now, but being a Windows device, it's going to need 32 with like 1.5 operating system upgrades. 16 gig is going to be the new 8 gigs.
I don't want to. If I want to buy if I'm going to buy, I'm sorry. If I'm going to buy an ARM-based Windows machine, I don't want it to have the name Surface on it. I don't want anything to do with a Microsoft-produced ARM-based Windows machine.
Well,
I want it to be made by somebody else.
Well, you can get them from everywhere. It's just
Can you now?
Yeah, you can. Yes, Samsung has one. Dell
Oh, really?
has one. HP.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So Samsung is back into the PC business. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, really quick. So while you were talking, I went to the Samsung website to bring up that phone, and I went to their chat bot, and I said to it, "Show me how to use Dex." Here's its response: "Sorry, but we cannot understand what you mean. Help us narrow down your request by choosing from one of the following," which are all about how to go through the support process, either sales or after the purchase. The fact that they don't have Dex built into their AI chatbot really annoys me. That just shows you how this is the killer feature that they have, but they aren't, they're not.
I don't think they quite understand that they have that killer feature. I mean, and in some ways it has been allowed to languish. It's only recently that it's gotten any semblance of proper attention from Samsung and been developed and updated and maintained in any way. But there was a period of a good 3 or 4 years where the Dex that you had on a phone from 4 years ago was the same Dex you had now.
Right.
And it's only recently that Samsung has given it some attention and brought it a little further into the future. But it's a little concerning that you go to their website and ask their AI bot that exists for the explicit purpose of selling a Samsung phone to you, show me how to use Dex, and it doesn't just immediately, anything you want, here we go.
Right. Dex is an amazing feature. You can't get this on an Apple device.
No.
Here, I'll ask it another question. Is Dex actively developed? If I could type. Okay, so I just asked, is DeX an actively developed feature on the S24 Ultra? It says, one moment while I check with our experts. You have been connected to an independent product expert. Let's see what they say. Let's just go ahead and play this out. Someone in
So they're
India,
sending you off literally to a human being somewhere.
maybe, probably not. Hello, welcome to Samsung. My name is Sunny, i.e.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I'm here to give world-class customer service. How may I assist you?
But first, let's process your antivirus refund.
Right, exactly. I want to ask, would you consider DeX to be the most beneficial feature when owning a how do you use it? This could be really
what
fun.
did you ask?
So I asked Sunny, i.e., would you consider DeX to be the most beneficial feature when owning a Samsung, and I misspelled Samsung device? How do you use it to be productive? I'm going to be like a chat bot coming back to, like, I'm going to be the chat GPT version of a chat bot on this side. Sunny, IBBU, Samsung experts. Let's see what the response is. Oh, you can meet.
Is there an actively typing indicator?
Yeah, there is now.
Okay. I mean, I can see your screen, but it's just so tiny.
You're right.
There is a maximize button. Let's see what happens if I hit that. Nothing. I mean, it won't let me just make your screen huge.
My screen should be huge. Okay, here's the response.
I don't need all the controls.
Right. You're on a mobile device. It knows that. Whether DeX is listen to this. This sounds like a chat GPT answer. Whether DeX is the most beneficial feature on a Samsung device depends on your individual needs. Here's a breakdown to help you decide. Highly beneficial if you travel often. DeX allows you to turn your phone into a desktop-like experience on the go, eliminating the need to carry a laptop for basic tasks. You value multitasking. DeX enables you to run multiple applications simultaneously on a larger screen, improving productivity. You already have a monitor, keyboard, and mouse. DeX can leverage your existing setup, saving you money on additional equipment. Okay, so I'm going to follow up. How do you use it?
By the way, I will say for the listening audience, Curtis mentioned a moment ago that I'm actively trying to get out of the Apple world, and I've made my first major step toward that. I paid off my iPhone, so I no longer owe the carrier anything for it. I paid off my Apple Watch. In fact, I did all that just yesterday, or maybe the day before. I don't remember. But so now I'm ready to get busy selling those things. And I was trying to sell my MacBook Air, my 15-inch M2 MacBook Air, but I was just having trouble getting anything from anybody other than, is this still available? Or would you accept a different dollar amount instead? It's like you try to sell anything online, and that is literally 95.9% of the conversations you wind up having with people. A, is it still available? And B, are you willing to take less money than you actually asked for? Like, what kind of negotiating is that? Just to walk up and, hey, I know you're asking X, but will you take Y? I mean, that's not like, give me a reason to take Y. You're not even giving me a reason. You're just out of the box. I don't know anything about you. I haven't spoken to you. We have no context here. We've had no interaction. And just the first thing out of the hole in your face is, will you take less money than the amount of money you said you wanted to take? It makes no sense to me that this is how people approach purchasing an item from a private seller. But I just got so sick of it. And I eventually found a company called It's Worth More, I think is the name of it. And they will literally buy your electronics. So they offered me almost $1,000 for it, which is about what I was asking anyway. And I just thought, you know what? This is so much easier than dealing with the general public. And I'm really not interested in having to meet up with random sex offenders at McDonald's or whatever it is you have to do in order to sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace. And I have no time for it. So this seems like an easier way to go. So, and I will tell you that if you're looking to sell any electronics like this, that the name of the service is It's Worth More.
Yeah,
They
it's
offered me
worthmore.com right now, right?
Yeah, they offered me far more for it than anybody else was willing to. So you might give that a try if you're trying to sell anything. But I'm well on my way toward getting out of the Apple universe. I'm not going to come back either. I know I've done this bounce back and forth thing a couple of times now, but I'm not coming back. I'm utterly done with it. I just want to be able to use my electronics and to integrate them into my life in whatever way is best for me without limitations. And if I'm going to have mobile devices with all of this horsepower baked into them, I actually want to be able to do things with that horsepower. If I want to be able to use my phone to mine Bitcoin, well, then damn it, I should be allowed to do that. If I want to use my phone to run a PS2 emulator and play PlayStation games on, I should be able to do that.
Right.
I'm just sick of it. So, yeah, I'm done with Apple. Absolutely finished. I don't care what they do. And I think they're so out of touch. I think the Apple VR illustrates just exactly how out of touch they really are. That product is going to flop, by the way. I'd be surprised if it's even still in production in
They've
8
already
months.
scaled back. Like the
I heard
Vision
that.
Pro 2 is now the Vision 2. Like how they can build a consumer version of it. I just put in for my MacBook. They'll give me $430 for it.
Oh, wow. That's all?
Yeah.
Yours is an Intel, though, isn't it?
It is. It's the last Intel that came out.
Yeah, yours might as well. Yours might as well have like the plague sprinkled on it.
Right. I can get more from Best Buy in a credit there. At one point, they were going to give me $700 for it.
So what did Samsung say to you about DeX?
Oh, so it basically was a Chat GPT thing.
Oh, great.
Like they kept coming back with.
Well, it depends on what your use case is.
Yeah,
we don't want to give any definitive answers or stick our neck out in any way.
Let's see if I can get back to this though. Oops. Give me that chat again. There it is. Okay. I said, how do you use it to be more productive? Are you currently using it? DeX can be a great alternative to carrying a laptop for tasks that don't require full power of a traditional computer. The multitasking capabilities can be helpful for managing multiple projects or research streams. The ability to use keyboard shortcuts can save time compared to using a touchscreen interface. Yeah, that's my biggest, honestly, the most petty complaint I have for iPhone right now is the keyboard on my iPhone is the most poorly calibrated of any touchscreen device. And I've worked with touchscreens all the way back in the 90s. And every device up until an iPhone, and then Android even went away from it, always gave you an easy way to calibrate it based on your finger touch. But I can't type the letter N, like what all the keys that are on the bottom of the key, NBV. I get the space bar every time.
Well, I use swipe to type, and I find that I'm infinitely faster using it. I've gotten really good at it. In fact, I can use swipe without even looking at the device. That's how fabulous I am at this. But on an iPhone, it is utterly frustrating. It fails to accurately capture what it is you're trying to say, even in certain contexts. Like it's not even capable of extracting context from what it is you're saying. Like I could say, so I was eating for Thanksgiving. I'm swiping, mind you. I could swipe out. I was eating at my mom and dad's house, and we had corn on the cob, and I told my mom it needs more butter and more salt. And you would look at what it captured from what you swiped, and it would be like we were eating corn on the carp.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It's like this is inexcusable. Yeah. The iPhone keyboard is the worst user experience, I think, in all of tech today. And I'm sick and tired of all the new emojis that Apple gives people every time there's an iOS update. I'm sick and tired of all the being able to share my music playlist with friends. Who gives a shit? Nobody does any of that stuff. Nobody cares what music I'm listening to, and I don't care what music anybody else is listening to. You think anybody gives a shit out there that I'm listening to How Long Has This Been Going On by Ace? No one cares at all about that. Yet, when I go to my keyboard to tell someone that I'm listening to How Long Has This Been Going On by Ace, well, naturally, it's going to tell them that I'm listening to How Lame Is This Golden Thong. I mean, it's just the most useless.
Yeah.
It's the most useless exercise in all of technology, using an Apple keyboard, and all of the usability features that an iPhone could undergo through these various revisions of iOS. None of it focuses on the things that actually matter, and that is me as a human being interfacing with the device. And I suppose that they've decided to forego any improvements in that regard even further, as evidenced by the fact that they're going full bore AI in iOS 18. They've decided to engage in a partnership with ChatGPT, but they promise that none of your personal information and your day-to-day use of your phone is going to be retained by OpenAI. Well, how do they know that? The only way that Apple is able to promise that to you is because they have a contractual agreement with OpenAI not to retain any of the data of users of Apple devices. Well, good luck with that. That's going to go really, really well. There's going to be data retention. There is going to be model training that takes place through the use of OpenAI by Apple users. There's no way around it. It's too valuable not to occur. And I'm sure that there's not enough money Apple could hand the people at OpenAI to get them to sign on to this. The payoff is in how OpenAI is going to be able to further develop their product by training it on your data. There's
literally no other benefit to them in
no,
doing
and
this.
so like this promise of your data will not be retained by OpenAI that Apple is making because Apple's got a contract with them and it specifically apparently prohibits them from doing so. Okay, well, you're being very specific in the promise you're making. It's kind of like Adobe has an AI. So we mentioned a moment ago, Adobe came out and said they had a new terms of service that essentially said that anything you create or produce using Adobe's products becomes the property of Adobe. It didn't use the word property, but it did grant Adobe an open license to use, reproduce, and obviously the end result of that language was that Adobe was going to use your products that you produce, your art, your content that you produce using Adobe products to train their AI. Well, then Adobe, as you mentioned earlier, backtracked. And one of the ways they backtracked was by adding language that said, Adobe will not use your creative work to train, and then it named a specific AI technology that is known to the public that has been produced by Adobe. Well, why are you being so specific, Adobe, in what AI product you're claiming will not be trained with user data? Why are you being so specific? Why don't you just say, we will not use your content created with Adobe products to train any AI of any kind? It will not be used to enhance our generative AI pursuits at all. No, they named a specific AI product within Adobe. Well, there must be multiple AI pursuits taking place at Adobe at all times. So for them to name one specific one and say that this is not going to be used, your content's not going to be used to train that particular AI, clearly there's more going on here than meets the eye. And if they wanted to make people even more suspicious of what it is that they're doing, they achieved that through the revision of their terms of service. So similar on the Apple side, when Apple says OpenAI is not going to retain any of your data because we have a contractual agreement with them that they won't do so. Well, okay, maybe I'm not worried about them necessarily retaining my data, but are they going to use my data? Are they going to use it in some way to, I mean, and define retain. I mean, someone can show me a poem they've written on a piece of paper and I
Yeah.
read it and okay, well, that's interesting. And then I hand it back to them and maybe the poem is only 4 lines long and it's really easy to remember. Well, I didn't retain it. I handed the paper back to the guy. Well, I've still got the information in my mind, though, and I'm still able to go about my day-to-day existence and employ my knowledge of that work should the need arise, which it won't. I don't think there's any situation where some dude's lines of four lines of poetry are going to be important to me in my day-to-day life. But just for the purpose of making this point, using the word retain, that seems awful specific.
Yes.
So a lot of people are dumping Apple now just because of this alone.
Yeah. So I brought up from their statement about it, we don't train generative AI on customer content. This is an official statement from
Well, wait a minute. This is from Adobe, right?
Adobe, correct?
Okay, so this is a point that a lot of the people complaining about this were making, was that no one gives a shit about Adobe's blog posts. Nobody gives a shit about Adobe's tweets. What is important
Right.
is the terms of service that you contractually and legally agree to.
Yeah, clarifications aren't the same as an amendment to your original terms of use.
I mean, literally, that terms of service that Adobe produced was so onerous and it was so all-encompassing. I mean, you literally were giving away your explicit control of anything you create to Adobe in perpetuity in every way that matters. I mean, if you're a content creator, that's all that matters is your ability to control who uses your content, who displays your content, who performs your content, who supplies it to the public. Where I mean, like in all the ways you would care what happens with your content, those are all the ways that Adobe was giving itself explicit rights to your content. And
Yeah.
now they're gonna put the genie what is the term? Put the genie back in the bottle
Yeah.
with a blog post, with a
Right.
tweet.
Yeah, we do not train generative AI on customer content. This is Adobe's statement. We are adding this statement to our terms of use to reassure people that this is a legal obligation on Adobe. Adobe Firefly, this is what you were calling out,
Yes.
is only trained on a data set of licensed content with permission, such as Adobe stock, and public domain content where copyright has expired. I don't believe that last and.
Well, really, I think that even without all of this, it should be plainly obvious to anybody that Adobe is such a dog shit company. And I call them that just because they are contributing to this new paradigm of software use where you don't own anything. You know, you don't pay just once and now you own the software. No, everything has to be licensed. Everything has to be subscription based. Everything has to be you pay every month, you pay every year. You can pay more per month or you can pay less per year. But either way, you're going to pay on an ongoing basis because we got bills to pay.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's unacceptable. And Adobe is one of the largest contributors to this new relationship between customer and software publisher that has sprung up in the last 15 years or so. They're one of the biggest contributors to that. And it's one of the worst things that's happened in software. And I think has probably done more to encourage piracy than any other action taken on the part of any software company in history.
Yeah, I mean, like I would say them and Microsoft, their commitment to subscriptions has been to the detriment of the user because. Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Microsoft is going to try that with Windows, and then they got smart and realized they bit off a little more than they could chew there.
Yeah, but look at Office, though. I mean, Office now, if you don't maintain your subscription, like what happens with all your content from it? Like, how do you open it? Where in the past you bought Office 98 or 97 actually on Windows and 98 on Mac, but you had it forever. So those, you always had access to open up your Word docs or spreadsheets, whatever. Now, I've maintained an active subscription with it since they created it, so I haven't had to test this, but I'm assuming you can open all those up in the Google equivalents or Open Office, if Open Office is even around anymore.
It is, but what you want to use is LibreOffice.
Oh, that's
LibreOffice
right.
is
Yeah.
far more advanced. And
Yeah.
but I will say this: I still use a copy of Office 2007, and I have one copy of it. It works great. I don't have to pay a subscription, and there are a slew of updates for it out there. And once you get it fully updated, even without the updates, I can't think of anything that I need to do in Office that I can't do in this. I mean, going from Office 2007, we're talking about a 17-year-old version of Microsoft Office. It is far more similar to what's out there today in the world of Microsoft Office than it is different. And I would challenge anyone to tell me what it is they need to do in Microsoft Office, not cloud-based stuff. That's not the conversation. I understand there's a lot of cloud utility built into modern versions of Office, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about sitting down in front of a PC and generating content in Office. I would like someone to give me a real-world use case of what it is they need to do in Office that they can't do in a copy of Office 2007, that they can do in Office 365 or whatever the hell it's called, that you pay a subscription for. I don't think there's anything.
Yeah,
So
I'm trying to think. I've been sitting here trying to decide what's the feature that
there's
that you
nothing.
have.
I mean,
Yeah.
all of the predominant file types and formats are supported. There's just nothing you can't do. And if there's like font types that you need, maybe that aren't in Office 2000, you can import them. If there's clip art you need, you can import it. There's nothing you need that is not there. So my advice would be things like Office, just get on eBay and get yourself a copy of Office 2007 with a nice product key, and off you go to the races. You've got what you need.
Yeah, subscribe for more tips from Michael on how to
Yeah.
live in 2007.
Look, when you're living in a van by the river
Right.
and you're doing an internet stream through a phone with a headset plugged in at the park, you find ways to get by.
Yes.
And this is possibly an addition to that list. I really mean it, though. I can't think of anything that you would want to do in Office that you need a modern version of Office for.
The funny thing is that you had spell check and grammar check even on that.
And it worked fine. I'm sure someone would tell me there's some sort of generative AI bullcrap built into Office today that does a better job with. Well, guess what? I'm not illiterate, and I don't need your grammar checks. I don't rely on them that heavily anyway. I'm a fabulous writer. I'm an amazing writer. I don't need that shit.
That's the thing that worries me, is that when you don't use skills, they fade over time. And the more we rely on all this technology, which I know I'm old man yelling at a cloud, but the less we depend on ourselves to edit and self-correct, the less ability we're going to have to be able to know when we should be editing or self-correcting. And that worries me. We're going to just get used to knowing how things look when they are AI generated.
I think there is definitely something to be said for that. And I don't care if I'm starting to sound like old man yells at cloud. There are certain things that are just true. And when we offload all of this human intellectual pursuit to devices and to services to engage in all of that intellectual pursuit for us, it really makes us stupider. And I find it happening in myself. There are plenty of times where there'll be something I want to remember that I can't remember. So I'll just pull my phone out and look it up rather than take the extra 10 to 15 seconds to think and give my mind a moment to pull from the dark recesses of itself that it needs to in order to retrieve this memory that I need to retrieve. So we've stopped training I mean, it literally is at a very basic level, use it or lose it. I mean, we've stopped
Yeah.
training our brains to work in the way, I mean, and it is work. And it's just like being a bodybuilder who doesn't go to the gym anymore, and you end up being a miserable fat shit. The same is happening on an intellectual level, a synaptic level in our brains that are not being properly exercised. They're just turning into blobs of fat rattling around in our water heads, and it's really devolving us as a race. We're just not. I mean, I'd like to find some flowery intellectual way to say this, but we're just not as smart as we used to be.
Right.
And
We're losing the ability to recognize what we're losing.
we really, yeah, that's the scariest part. We don't realize what it is that we've lost. I think a perfect example of this is I'll shut up here in a second, but I was watching a video on X the other night of these two girls who won an award as champion debaters, and I listened to a clip of them debating, and they sound like absolute idiots. They are absolute idiots. They have no intellect behind themselves whatsoever. They're just stupid. They're stupid people. They're not bright. They are not smart. They're not particularly intelligent. They're not bright. Yet they are our debate champions, and they are a product of this modern world that we live in, and the offloading of intellect to third-party devices and services instead of it taking place locally within our own brains.
Yeah, so like the thought that I had with that is, and someone else had brought this up in a video I was watching not too long ago, and we do have a question from chat, so I want to get to that in just a moment before we wrap up. But quick thought is, AI is being trained off of what we give it, and so it's getting better because there's still more of our data to process than what it's been able to up to this point. But there's going to be a threshold that it hits to where it's not getting new quality content. So AI is not going to be able to exponentially get better based off of us, because it's kind of a feedback loop that's beneficial now, maybe. I think it's questionable at this point whether it's a beneficial feedback loop. But that curve of its ability to help us is going to, like, hockey stick go down once it gets past processing all of our data, and when it has all of the, and I guess going back to our earlier statements about English, like, let's just keep it with English. Once it's processed everything that's ever been written in English in print or digital format, it's not going to have anything new really to generate itself off of to get smarter. So the curve can't go up still, and it's going to have dumb generated stuff. And then the feedback loop becomes negative, and it's going to just crash unless there's some major innovation that occurs that helps it get smarter contextually. But at that point, do we actually believe it's going to write like the next Shakespearean play when it has nothing to base itself off of? I'll leave it at that. Are you ready for this question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this is being asked by Timothy Ranke in chat, saying, do you guys have any thoughts on Pro Tools? Is that sub-based now? And how are the system requirements? I had a friend ask today, but I'm way out of the loop. So I've brought up the Pro Tools website for their subscription. I used to use Pro Tools before it went subscription, and then I stopped. I never updated to the subscription version. There is a free one, but it's very limited in what it can do. I didn't know if you had any other thoughts or if you use Pro Tools.
No, I've never used it in my life. It's an audio editing platform, isn't it? Audio production?
They make, like, I guess that's a good clarifying question too, is like, I'm thinking about from the audio point of view, but they do have video too with it. But I typically think of Pro Tools for audio production. And yeah,
I'm not really the best person. I'm not really the best person to ask about audio production tools, because when I do audio production, I use a piece of software that I know I've mentioned on our shows in the past that's 30 years old, called Saw Plus 32. And it was originally designed to run in Windows 95. And it looks the same today as it looked 27 years ago. and it operates in much the same way as well. And in fact, it's so antiquated that when you use it, it's best if you are using a multi-core processor, or if you're using a processor with hyperthreading, you generally want to go into the BIOS or the UEFI or whatever and turn off the hyperthreading, because it can actually kind of cause this software to run really inefficiently. I mean, it expects to be running on like a Pentium 2 or a Pentium 3, and
That's funny.
but the thing is that I'm able to do some fabulous audio production on this. You've heard some of my audio production.
Oh, yeah.
You would never know that I'm doing this on a 30-year-old piece of software that fits on a floppy disk, like a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk. This thing's written in assembler language. It's lightweight. It is adequate. It does everything I need to be able to do in terms of audio production. And if there are certain effects you need or something like that, you can offload that to maybe a third-party utility or plugin of some sort, and then maybe like once you've done what you need to do to it, import it back in or whatever. But I very rarely even find myself needing to do that. And so I would recommend looking into, well, maybe I wouldn't recommend it, but for me, Saw Plus 32 is what I've been using to edit audio, to do audio production for a long time, since it was first introduced to me when I started working in radio when I was 17. And I just have yet to find something I want to do with it that I can't do. So why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. The thing is that that's going to be hard for the average person if they don't have that older machine to work with.
But you don't even need an older machine. I mean,
Yeah.
generally speaking, you can run it on a brand new machine using modern hardware without changing a single setting, and it'll run just fine. But there are instances where you might have to make a modification or two. But
Yeah, I'm looking at the Pro Tools. So like Pro Tools is easy to use because like I'm not. I guess let me back up a little bit here. Like when it comes to like audio production, video production, software development, spreadsheet management, whatever tool you know how to use is the right tool. Like if you can get done what you need, all the other stuff is just make you more efficient at it. So like anyone who complains about, well, I use Adobe Audition, or I use DaVinci Resolve, or I use Pro Tools, all of that, it's all about the tool you're comfortable with. Same thing with like 3D modeling. I know people who use $10,000 3D modeling software to build like stress test engineering equipment for manufacturing. And I know a guy who uses the free version. I can't think of what it's called, Blender. And the end result looks to me the same between the two. It's just a matter of what you're using it for, your end result, and what you're comfortable with. The right tool is the tool you pick to get it done. So I would say that to your friend first. And Pro Tools is easy to use, especially someone who's not like a great audio file. Like I'm an audio file on the consumer end, but not on the production end. I can tell when something sounds really good, but making that audio sound really good, I'll leave that to Michael. But the minimum requirements for even the free version of Pro Tools, which is what I would tell your friend to do first, download the free one. It's limited in the amount of tracks and MIDI cues and everything you can have with it, and samples, but that lets you see whether it works or not. But the requirements for it are super easy. A Mac that has at least Intel dual core i5, which is a pretty old i5, and then on the Windows side, the 64-bit i3 2 gigahertz or faster. Like if you bought your computer since 2016, you're going to be good.
There's a huge school of thought out there also about Audacity and the fact that more people need to just turn to that. I mean, it's free, it's widely used, so there's a huge breadth and scope of support available for you out there using Audacity. There are countless plugins available for it. It's highly capable. It's well written. It's lightweight. It's multi-platform. It's ubiquitous. And And I hate to harp on it's free because that's not necessarily the most ringing endorsement that you can give to a product.
Yeah.
But it is free,
I've used it
even
to,
in.
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it is free, even with all of those benefits I just mentioned.
Yeah, I've used Audacity to edit multiple podcasts over the years that we've done together as a group. Man, that vehicle needs to get its muffler checked. Somebody's going around with a catalytic converter removed. But yeah, I've edited multiple podcasts. I've done enterprise or corporate video production using Audacity for like interviews and stuff. Like, yeah, the thing, again, the tools work. I had the more expensive tools available to me, even in those, and Audacity is just quick and easy.
I keep telling myself I'm going to learn Audacity, and I mean, I have used Audacity, but I'm not good with it. And after, let's see, 97, after almost 30 years, like 27 years of doing audio production in a certain way with a specific set of tools, you really build a muscle memory to things, and it's hard to unlearn that and get yourself doing something new in order to achieve essentially the same end result. So on the one hand, you ask yourself, well, why put myself through that? But on the other hand, I do recognize that, using something that was produced in the mid 90s in the year 2024 in order to do audio production may not be the best way forward. And particularly looking at it from a long-term perspective, in the next 10 years, things are going to change a lot. It's one day you're not going to probably have an easy time getting your hands on an x86
Right.
PC. And so everything's probably going to be ARM based, and a lot of this software that people use that is decades old is just simply not going to run, or it'll have to run in a virtualized environment, which is going to be less efficient and less reliable, and in many instances won't even work at all. So there's that side of things telling me that I've got to get better with something else. And I think the something else is going to be Audacity, because I don't see any reason to learn anything other than Audacity. I don't know what it is that other audio editing platforms bring to the table that Audacity doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's done everything I needed, because like I've used it. Like, it's really nice on the command line with Audacity to be able to batch changes and like normalization and cutting off at certain points, and then bringing it into other tools. I think it's definitely a skill that you should have.
There is another option. There is a version of Adobe Audition. I think it's like, I don't know what version Adobe Audition is up to now, but there's like an older version of Adobe Audition that's free from Adobe, so you're not engaging in piracy or anything to get your hands on this. You can get it from Adobe. It's free. And I want to say it's like Adobe Audition 4 point something, but I don't remember for sure what version it is. But it's a fully capable, fully usable version of Audition. And I think for 99.9% of use cases, it's going to do everything you need to do. But again, if you're going to go to the trouble of finding that and using that, which I'm sure if it's even still available from Adobe, it's probably buried in their website somewhere. If you're going to go to that trouble, though, I think you'd be better off just using Audacity, because I suspect that it operates in a very similar fashion anyway, and is capable of more anyway.
I think we should, because we're talking about music. Let's see. So let me look at the response we got from Timothy here. I'll mention Audacity to him. Thanks. I've used it in the past and it's great. My friend is doing home music recording, maybe 6 to 8 tracks. Yeah, I think Audacity is probably, like, there is a free version of Pro Tools that'll work in that scenario, 6 to 8 tracks. But Audacity, again, it's free and it's easy. I sent you some of my, and I'm not claiming any of this stuff is good, but the AI generated music that I created, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I want to play one for you, just to, since we're talking about music stuff. This is one my daughter created. This one. This song is called, and it's a short thing because it's not the full song, but it's called "Dragon's Best Friend." Listen to this.
once was a girl who found a dragon friend. They soared the skies where fun would never end. Over rainbows bright, they flew so high. With sparkly raindrops, they touched the sky. It's a tale of a dragon and a girl so brave, flying high above where dreams behave.
Isn't that weird that that's AI generated? It sounds creepy, but also funny.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Again, I'm not saying that song itself is good, just that the technology has gotten to the point where it can mimic that.
I think I'm going to send you an audio file here that maybe at the end of the show when we're done, you could. It's about 9 minutes long, but I'd like you to play it, and I want this to be heard by people as an example of what's capable using a 27-year-old piece of software that fits on a floppy drive. Give me just
Do you
a
want
minute.
to end the show on it? Like, do you want to play that clip and then?
Yeah, when we end, you can just play it, and I'm going to send a copy to you here. I'm trying to decide what the best method of doing so is. Characters.
Yeah, I was going to generate a song for us to end the show, but let's do that instead.
Okay.
Then I think we should wrap up, even though we're just now starting to get the chat showing up. We'll definitely be more consistent with episodes again coming up soon.
Okay, I
Like
sent
Michael
check
said, yeah.
check your email. I just sent it to you.
Okay.
It is a several years ago. I did some work with a guy named Michael Sadler, who is the lead singer of a band called Saga, and they had a few hits back in the '80s. And around 2014, he started doing some work with a French band, and I think this is probably I'm more proud of this than I am of anything I've ever worked
Nice.
on. I engineered all the male vocals in the recording that you're going to hear. But my point is,
In a van down by the river.
pretty much.
with a mattress against the side.
It's just amazing as you listen to it to know that it was done using just a tiny little piece of simple software, and when you hear it, you will be wowed.
Nice. Well, let's end it on that. Do you have anything else you want to?
No, that's
mention
it.
Before? All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching. Anything else to end us on, or let me just start playing?
Hit it.
back into your mind for some rewind. And this is the place where you erased our dearest face of Eden days.
To ebb and flow.
but heard this verse. And it's crystal clear, my twilight dear, how being bright with dark inside. You left to dive into the sun. A beach in the sky, you dive into the sun.
Swimming in the sun, suddenly a loving light surrounds me. Swimming in the sun, suddenly a loving light I was and will be.
A beach in the sky, you dive into the sun.
Swimming in the sun, suddenly your loving light surrounds me. Swimming in the sun, suddenly the loving light you are I will be. Swimming in the sun, suddenly your loving light surrounds me. Swimming in the sun, suddenly the loving light you are I will be.
I am the dark, you're dark inside, your unknown side. Hello, I'm the unknown, your unknown side, you're dark inside. Hello, I am the dark, you're dark inside, your unknown side. Hello, your unknown side, you're dark inside.